Hey friends, and welcome to Mom Talk Maryland. I'm your host, Claire Duarte, founder of the Columbia Mom, and this is your spot for real conversations, local love, and a whole lot of community. Whether you're folding laundry, running errands, or hiding in your car for some peace and quiet, let's dive in. All right. Well, Martha, I'm so glad to have you here today, and I can't believe I finally met you for the first time this past summer when you were getting ready for the Enchanted Forest birthday celebration. Right. But when I met you and you were obviously telling us about the Enchanted Forest, I quickly realized you are basically the walking encyclopedia of Howard County, and might even call you're probably the OG Columbia Mom. Really, I should be giving you that title. But I have with us today Martha Clark. Can you tell us a little bit more about your family, about the farm, and let's just jump into it.
Okay. Clarks have been farming in Howard County since 1797, so I'm the sixth generation. My daughter who farms with me is the seventh generation, and my grandson is the eighth generation of Clarks farming in Howard County. That's where Clarksville comes from, and we were immigrants. We came over. The first Clarks came here and worked with Charles Carroll of Carrollton, and they did some milling for him and some farming for him, and then purchased the first farm, which was Wheatfield over on Montgomery Road.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a housing development there that still surrounds the original house. The original house is still there. Someone lives in it, very nice people. And then other farms along the way. My grandfather was born on Fairfield, which is on 108, which is now Running Brook. And that house did not survive. That house was, when Columbia came in and Running Brook was created, there was the farmhouse, which I used to go visit, I think was burnt down in one of those fire training sessions, something like that. Yeah. And then my father came back from World War II and started farming the farm that we live on now, the one on the corner of Centennial Lane and 108.
Yes.
And that is when he came back from World War II, he had a dairy operation there.
Okay.
And when I was born, there were 250 dairy farms in Howard County, and there are one or two now. And so that's the 70-year change in the complexion of Howard County. There were about 30,000 people, and a lot of farmland, a lot of farmers, and Dad made his living as a farmer his entire life, and when he retired from farming, he turned the farm over to my brother, who continued to run it as a dairy operation until he moved the whole dairy operation down to southwest Georgia. And then my dad ended up doing corn, soybeans, and we've always had Angus cattle in addition to the dairy cattle. And so we continued to do that. And then I had a career off on my own without any idea of having anything to do with the farm.
Right.
That was my brother's thing. But I worked for the state for about 10 years. I worked on women's and children's issues. I was executive director of the Maryland Commission for Women, and which I loved. That was great fun. And then I married and worked in my husband's business, which was the Southern States store, the Farm and Home store down on the corner of Frederick Road and St. John's Lane. And I helped him run that business until he passed away in 2000. And then I came back to the farm. I had a 10-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter that I had to support. And so I came back to the farm and figured that would be the place where I would figure out how to make a living and continue to raise my family. And I had always wanted to do a petting farm. We had talked about it several times, my husband and I. but we had never, sort of gotten it together to start doing that.
Yeah.
And so this was the time to do that.
Yeah.
I thought, this is an opportunity. And a place called the Cider Mill, which was down in Elk Ridge, was a petting farm and pumpkin patch, and they had apple orchards and that kind of thing. And I opened up the Sun one day, and at just about the same time I was trying to figure out what I was going to do.
That's right.
And there was an article about the cider mill selling for development and closing down. And I thought, this is the opportunity. This is the time to fill that gap.
Yes.
And so that's what I did. I opened up Clark's Elioak Farm, and have been entertaining families and children and school groups for 23 years.
23 years. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I just love just kind of like, part of the reason why I love doing the podcast, for many reasons, is like I love to get to know, obviously, your story, and you have an immense rich history and background and literal roots in Howard County, right? But I can just relate so much to that feeling of being a mom, even though, your kids were 10 and 12, like you're significantly younger than they clearly are now, right? Of just that feeling of like, you were sort of forced to start over, right? But I think in motherhood, we often feel that way of just because sometimes it's just, you're having your kids, and that's kind of the natural force of, starting over, starting different, right? And, kind of what spurred me into creating the Columbia Mom, you know what I mean? I love that the notion when you said that, you just kind of jumped in and did it. And I love that spirit, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's probably a lot of what ties into your family and their spirit for, even though if they had a background in farming, they still, did it. They made it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I've always felt that, you try something. The worst thing that can happen is you can fail. And then you do something else.
Yeah. Or tweak it. You know what I mean? Right? Like that's just a reality.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that I can speak from the moment that we moved here, have just absolutely adored Clark's Elioak Farm. If you have a child that's, I guess, anywhere from 0 to 20 is probably heard of or seen or on a field trip, right? Obviously, it's funny because like this time of year, it's like almost nearly impossible to get in because it's just like the fall season. And actually, what I was getting ready to say was like my son, who's now in kindergarten. I was like, I don't know that they will have a field trip there this year because I feel like the pre-Ks do a lot of it, and I don't know if like
the pre-Ks and the Ks. And,
I know, so I don't know if his school. And same with my daughter. I was like, are we out of the Clark's field trips? Like, because we would have via the school. You know what I mean? We get the season pass every year. But so when you started the Clark's Elioak Farm, did you just like pull from like the farm animals that you guys already had, or were you kind of pulling in more? I'm just kind of curious how that kind of came about.
Well, I went to the auction when they sold everything from the cider mill and bought their goats.
Yeah.
A number of their goats.
Yeah.
And but we did. We have friends who are farmers in Howard County. So
easily just source.
So we got pigs from somebody. We got calves from somebody. We bought the goats from the cider mill. The emu, I can't remember where the emu came from, but that was just nobody I know has emu. That was somebody just offered us an emu.
That's
so I said,
funny.
And we had friends with ponies, and we had, and so, we gathered animals from our farm and from other farms of people we knew.
And probably easily to kind of keep evolving from there to kind of like, because now you got like the bunnies and the turkeys and all of that. I
think the first year we had peacocks.
Ooh.
Wild,
right? Fast forwarding to, you guys just celebrated the 70th birthday of Enchanted Forest, which obviously wasn't originally obviously at Clark's Elioak Farm, but do you want to share a little bit more for those that might not, again, if you are have been remotely anywhere part of Howard County, you also would know about Enchanted Forest.
Right.
But can you tell us a little bit more about
that? Well, that's, another thing where I opened the paper one day and read an article about how there had been a charity auction of the realtors in the county do a charity auction every year, and the real estate agent who was at the Enchanted Forest Shopping Center in that in their offices there had talked Kimco Realty into letting them have the pumpkin coach. It was just sitting behind their building, just sitting there because no one had picked it up and gotten rid of it or anything.
Right.
And so they fixed it up. They learned how to fiberglass, fixed it all up. And the article was about the fact that it had been sold at this charity auction the night before, and it had been bought by some people who were bidding against somebody who was just going to buy it and put it in their backyard, and they thought it should be more available to a wider group of people.
Yeah.
So they bought it, but they didn't really know what they were going to do with it. They didn't have a plan for it, but they thought, well, we can do something. We can put it in a parade, or we can do something with it. And so a number of people responded to that article and got in touch with these people and said, a car dealer or landscaper, all these different people, with ideas about what they wanted to do with the pumpkin coach. And I was one of them.
Yeah.
I called them up and I said, I've got the place, perfect place, 5 miles away from the original Enchanted Forest, a family, venue.
Oh my gosh.
And, but, it was we spent the entire summer going back and forth, and some people, got word that that they had this coach, a pumpkin coach, and what were they going to do with it? And everybody was afraid it was going to leave Howard County, that somebody would get on eBay and it would, go.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I think it made sense that. And they realized that it made sense for it to come to Clarksville Elioak Farm. It was the most positive thing they could do with it, as opposed to keeping it, planting it somewhere, out of the county. Yeah.
So essentially, in part of that process, did you, because it was already sold to the private? Yeah. So then you approached.
I approached them and bought it from them, and they were over in Dundalk in the Essex area. So got a tractor. And,
so it had already been acquired. So then you had to reacquire.
It was all over there. So I had to buy it from them and bring it around the Beltway. On a trailer with people, watching it as it goes by, and that was a very positive thing. We had that here in the fall of 2024, and it just felt like it was the right place for it. Yeah. We were a pumpkin patch. It was a pumpkin coach. Everybody just thought that it's where it should be. Right. So after that season was over, I went to Kimco and I said, I'd like to get some more of these pieces.
Right.
The shopping center was there.
Where were the rest of the pieces?
Fenced, everything was in place.
Okay, but
they had basically locked the gates to the Enchanted Forest,
and it was just
they were all just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I think they, kind of checked me out, and they understood that I was going to get these things, bring them over to my farm, not put them on eBay, not sell them to someone else, not take them out of the county, and that's what everybody seemed to think was the best thing to do. So, and so they go, but we'd like you to take it all. It's like, in my complete naivete, I said, of course, take it all.
You were like, I just want collector's items. I just want a few more.
Right. So 10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars later, I have just anything that could have been moved from there, I moved.
Amazing.
Picked up. I hired the people who moved the Hatteras Lighthouse. They They pick the things up, they jack them up a little bit at a time, the buildings, put 6x6s underneath them until they get it high enough that they can drive a truck bed underneath.
Okay.
And then that's how they move buildings. And so they moved a couple of them. Wonderful guy, XL tree experts, Marty Levine, has the most beautiful crane I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And he's moved a lot of them.
Yeah.
A wonderful man named George Miller helped me put them back together, take them apart before we brought them over. The shoe's 30,000 pounds and 23 foot tall, the great big purple shoe.
Purple one, yeah.
So it had to be cut in half and put on 2 different trailers and brought over and then put back together.
Did the original one have the slide?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was okay.
Yeah. That was all part of it, but which makes it all very hard to move.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, because that sits on a higher platform, and then there's the wall. Right. So it's nothing's easy.
No, of course not.
The Three Bears house had to be cut in half, and the big, larger part went on one trailer, and the 2 smaller parts went on another trailer. Every time one of these things went down the road, we made the evening news.
Yeah. So the migration happened. You said it was
over a 10-year period. Yeah,
wow.
I moved a couple of things a year.
Yeah.
And the things we brought over at the beginning were in much better shape than the ones we brought over later. This thing is wood and wire frame, with concrete or of covering or fiberglass, that kind of thing. So. Once they start to crack, once the water gets in, they start to fall apart pretty quickly. So so you bring them over and put them back together, and then now it's constant yearly maintenance.
I was going to say, because I saw when we were at the farm, you were you probably learned much more than you ever intended.
Yes, I have learned the fiberglass. I'm terrible at it, but I do repairs. Yeah,
because what you were showing me, I mean, looked great, and I'm sure the shelf life on them, especially the outdoor shelf life on them is challenging. But the whale one was the one that you guys recently kind of helped refurbish. That was great. Yeah, so because I feel like a lot of families, especially because this is very typical of Howard County, you get a lot of like new families coming in, like my age, your daughter's age, right, moving into the area with their new babies and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, Enchanted Forest, but we're like might not know, realize what the Enchanted Forest
the history of it,
the real history of it, and I think too, like people don't even realize even when they're coming to the farm, they know that like, especially if they were from this area, like okay, this is like obviously the new Enchanted Forest here, but we know where the OG one was. But there's like I said myself, I had no idea about your family history, and can you tell me a little bit more? Because obviously at the farm you were walking me through. And I wish, and I'll share this on our show notes. I'll collect more of those pictures from you so we can kind of show more of that family tree you were showing me. But wasn't there another family? Was it the Ellicott?
Ellicotts, yeah.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, my grandmother has a rich ancestry. There was a large Quaker population in Maryland, and my grandmother's descended from the Ellicotts and the Hopkinses. So she's the great niece of Johns Hopkins, and
it's like Maryland royalty, right?
yeah, and the Ellicotts who settled Ellicott City.
Yeah.
So we go back. The Clarks are newcomers. They only go back to 1797. The Ellicotts, of course, settled in Pennsylvania first and came here in 1772. Isn't that what we just celebrated, the sesquicentennial of Ellicott City? Yeah. So. So we go back and have some and the one nice thing is I'm very proud of all my ancestors. They all did cool things,
Yes.
Well,
and I feel like in a lot of the family tree that you kind of showed me, there's a lot of like women in there, and I was like, that just felt really cool to see, such strong women. I do have that family tree that focuses on the women. Yes.
Martha Ellicott Tyson, who was the daughter of George Ellicott, and Elizabeth Brooke, whose Quaker family came from Brookville in Montgomery County.
Oh.
And Martha Ellicott Tyson wrote a history of the settlement of Ellicott City, Ellicott Mills, and a biography of Benjamin Banneker, who was a friend of her father's. And Benjamin Banneker was a free black man in Oella who was a very accomplished scientist and astronomer. He helped. He worked with Andrew Ellicott surveying Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And he wrote almanacs for years and years and years, Benjamin Banneker. And there's a museum of Benjamin Banneker at his home in Oella. Right across the river from Ellicott City. So there's a very close connection between
I didn't realize he was from
City.
Oella.
Yeah.
That is so, and again,
and there's a lovely museum there.
Yes.
Yeah, that shows his home site and has a tremendous amount of information about him.
So now I'm adding that to my list. That is so cool. Well, so in looking at Clark's Elioak Farm, and it's become such a special place for families over the years. What do you remember about the farm becoming more of a community hub? And what's kind of some of your favorite memories of watching it evolve over the years?
Oh, gee. Well, it's so much fun welcoming families and with their children to the farm. And once we started getting the Enchanted Forest stuff, that was like a whole nother thing. I mean, we were having a great time just, being a petting farm and a place for birthday parties and school tours. Yeah. But getting the Enchanted Forest stuff did take it to a new level. I mean, you get the three generations. You get the parents and the grandparents and the parents who went to the Enchanted Forest as children and parents. And they come with their picture of all of them sitting on Willie the Whale's mouth, and then they get the three generations, and they do the picture, and everyone tells the same story. They talk about, well, when we came to the Enchanted Forest, we get in the car and we drive and we drive and we drive, and then we would see this place that was just magical. And the world didn't revolve around children in the 50s and the 60s the way it does now. Yeah. And usually, you didn't go out on a lot of family trips and that kind of thing. Yeah. And so when you did have this special day at the Enchanted Forest, it was really special. And the kids got it. The kids, it was built for them. Yeah. For sure. And they understoed that the minute they got there, and it was so magical for them. And what it was so funny that, they'd say they drove and they were coming from Pikesville, and they were coming from Owings Mills, and they were coming, a place that's 15 minutes, away now, and it just felt like it was forever because it was out in the middle of the country. Yeah.
Farmland, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was just so magical. And so it just is so much fun to be able to have that for people who thought they'd never see it again, and thought they'd never be able to take their children and grandchildren to see it again. And there it is, Yeah.
I know. So, and I feel like, well, I know we're talking about the Enchanted Forest part. I feel like one of my favorite parts about, I was gonna say the farm as a whole, but I was I love kind of the actual woods that you have in there, and it's kind of discovering. And it's funny because a lot of my kids, when they get there, we've been going there for years, literally, my son has taken some of his first steps at your farm, and they get there and they just like your grandson, just roam the roost, they just start sprinting in every direction because they know their way around, they know what they they have their mental checklist. I'm gonna hit all of these things, right? Yeah. So we don't always hit the forest part because they're going for the heavy hitters, the goats, the animals, the rides, right? But when we go in, it's just so cool because it's it's kind of it does feel like secret woods, literally, and because it's a little shaded in there, and then all these different spots, and it goes so far back. You know what I mean? And I just think that's such a fun little magical spot of it.
And what I think is special about the farm too is that there's no electronics. There's no QR codes to take a picture of and get some picture of a nursery rhyme or something like that.
Right.
What you're seeing is the dish and the spoon. You're not seeing,
Yes.
and it's a place to run, like you said. You get there and there's nothing that you look at a phone to do.
Right.
There's nothing you look at an iPad to do. You are there to enjoy running around, feeling safe. It's a nice, safe place to go, and it's a step back, really.
Yeah.
And I love that. I
know.
don't want to go into the world of I have to engage you electronically to entertain you. I want to be the throwback.
No, exactly.
I want to be the place where for a half a day, you don't have screen time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we know in our ever-changing society that there's merit and necessity on both ends, right? It's like we can't ignore the evolving, pushing technology, because that's also being taught in school, because I was like, my kids aren't going to need to know how to use a phone and a computer and all of that. But I mean, just as much as our kids need that outdoor nature screen-free time, so do we as adults. I mean, there's a reason why we say, like, take a break and go outside and have sun on your face, right? I mean, again, some of my other favorite memories too is, like, I remember, I'm sure you remember this too, when I forget what age now, but when when the babies are still taking 2 naps a day, like they haven't quite made it to the 1, right? And but because I had two babies, 2 under 2, right? So I was straddling my daughter would take the 1 day nap, but my son was taking 2. So I, as a mom, like during that stage of life, I felt like I was like trapped, because I was like, well, I'm like in my house the whole day because baby number 1 takes this nap, and then she takes this one, and then so I'm like, well, what am I gonna do, right? Yeah. So I think what I ended up with doing, when I would kind of push my daughter, she was a little bit older, her nap, and just be like, but I would, as soon as he woke up from that first nap, I would have lunches packed, like already. I would pack lunch while he was getting ready, and as soon as he woke up, throw him in the car. Go to the farm and let them run, and we would have lunch there, tire them out, so then we would get back and I'd put it both down.
They both get a nap.
Both get down for a nap. And I did that so many times that summer. And I just I love that, because I was just like, they need this, and again, every time they get to go, it's the same thing. They're just as excited. I just love seeing them. They literally sprint in different directions, and I'm like, now they're old enough that I'm like, okay, like I know they are literally locked in here, but when they were little, I was like, oh my lord. But well, so in talking about that too, kind of like the ever evolving, like you have literally, I mean, you and your whole family have seen this area. When you said 70 years, I don't really, that sounds long, but when you think of, again, just the history of the area and the farmlands, when you said from like, what'd you say, 250
dairy farms
down to
in the 50s,
So, like, what's that been like for you, kind of seeing the area evolve and change kind of around your farm?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, we're in the Baltimore-Washington corridor, so there's no way that we would have stayed a totally rural community forever.
Not in this area.
So we were going to get the development. So I think that Columbia having the plan, because otherwise it would just be a farm would sell and there would be a housing development, and a farm would sell and there would be a housing development. So I think that Columbia provided a real vibrancy and a plan, and brought wonderful people to the county that I think would have happened differently, but probably not as well as the way it came with Columbia.
Right.
And the nice thing is we married that with, my dad was in the legislature for a number of years. He was a senator from Howard County. And he was the architect, along with several other great senators that he worked with, the Agricultural Land Preservation Program. And that's where the state buys the development rights for the farm and extinguishes them.
Yes.
So you can so the farmer gets an infusion of cash, which is really helpful, and they get that pressure of developers calling them all the time, saying, when are you going to sell me your farm? When are you going to sell me your farm? Off their shoulders. And then that land is, stays in farmland for perpetuity. So that's the plan. Yeah. So that takes that pressure off. So the nice thing about, and those things kind of happen simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So instead of Columbia coming in and bringing people to the county and then having them continue to, settle and develop in the western part of the county. Right. The farms in the western part of the county are a lot of them are in the farm preservation program. That's what I thought, because I was going to say a lot of those still seem intact. So we have about over 20,000 acres in farm preservation in Howard County, and I think we're only 80,000 acres. So right. Yeah. So it's a nice part of the county that's in preservation, and so we have been able to maintain our rural character in the county, in addition to having this vibrant, urban area too. Yeah. So it's
and speaking to that, why do you think it's important? I mean, obviously to kind of keep the 20 acres. Was it 20?
20,000 acres.
I was it's not 20. Yeah. 20,000 acres is still preserved, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's important, just coming from, again, your perception and background, to kind of keep, that part of Howard County still preserved as we kind of keep moving
because
forward?
We need farmers and we need food grown here. And would you rather eat a tomato that was grown in California or Florida, picked green, driven across the country and gassed on its way over here so that it looks kind of pale red by the time it gets here? Or would you rather have one that we picked in the morning that's bright red and full of flavor, full of dense, nutrients? Yep. I mean, which one do you want?
For sure. It's always.
If we, pave over every farm, we have a lot of wonderful beginning farmers, people who are, farming on 5, 10, acres, and producing incredible vegetables at the farmers markets, and that's the food we want to eat. Yeah. And you have to have farmland, absolutely, to produce the food and it's going to only get worse. You can't have all the farms in Florida or in California,
in one part,
because you're going to have natural disasters. You're going to have years when there's too much rain, years that are not enough rain, and if you're producing food all around the country, everywhere, then you have a better chance of being able to feed people.
Right.
So
no, I think that makes sense, and. Even speaking to our local natural disaster with the Key Bridge, we talk about supply, distribution, you know what I mean, and that affecting just the chain of being of food being able to get to where it needs to go. And obviously there's seasonal fluctuations in all of our areas, and we're always talking about the cost of food, and now we're spurring ourselves in a whole different. That'll be podcast number 2. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I know we didn't specifically talk about this, but do you have anything to share too about the? Don't you guys have a little farmers market stand?
We do in the summer.
I know it's seasonal.
Yeah, it's seasonal. So it is. All of July and all of August. It's the summer vegetables. We find that people will stop for sweet corn, but they won't stop for kale. So we don't have it
always
open.
Sweet.
We don't have it open in the. But we do. Anything we grow at the farm is always available to buy in the store.
In the store. And what do you carry? Again, I'm familiar, but for anyone else, what else do you carry in the store so that people kind of know?
And you can shop in the store without paying the admission to go into the farm.
Yeah, you can just literally come and shop.
Well, we're just finishing up now, so we just have a few tomatoes and peppers and those kind of things. So not so much produce now, but meat. We raise 100% grass-fed beef and pork.
Okay.
And pigs. So you can buy, it's frozen, it's in individual packages, and you can buy it anytime at our store, as I said, and you can come in and purchase without, paying to go into the farm.
Sure.
Or you can get it on your way out after you visited the farm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then kind of final accolades for the farm. You guys are in, I know the calendar because I know the season pass is burned in my brain until like November 1st, correct?
Second this year.
Second.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a lot of the fall festivals.
Right. Yeah. In fact, our pumpkin patch opens this weekend, September 13th and 14th. And it's funny because more people have been asking recently about the pumpkin patch and when we're going to start our fall activities than it feels like in other years. And I think it's because it feels like fall.
Yeah,
we've it's been
felt
cool.
like fall early.
Yeah. So it just people are like cued into either that or they're selling pumpkin lattes now.
Yeah,
so everybody's thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But the pumpkin patch opens. We're going to have apple cider donuts. We're going to have apple cider. We're going to have the pumpkin patch. We've got a little hay bale maze and there's several small hay bale mazes and just decorating for the fall. And food vendors and all of that kind of stuff. So we're open for business. We're normally closed on Mondays year round, but in the fall we're even open on Mondays. So we're closed we're closed just one more Monday. We're closed Monday, the September 15th, and after that, we're open 7 days a week until November 2nd.
Wow. It's like your blitz.
Yeah.
It's your farm blitz, end of year blitz.
Exactly.
So people can definitely come in to get their daily passes, their tickets, and they can also get kind of tickets for the different rides.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, too, the farm has on the weekends a few more of like the vendors and maybe during the week.
Yeah.
But, any other final notes for us to kind of share about Clark's and the farm?
When I decided to do this, I didn't know how it was going to end up, but I just knew I wanted to share my farm with people. I love the farm. I've grown up there. I've spent most of my life there, and it's just a very special place. And it is so much fun to see people enjoy it the way you described enjoying the farm, and just seeing families come either for the first time and just being blown away by what it's like, or season pass holders who come. I mean, we know our season pass holders so well, and it's just so much fun to know that we have this special place, and that we can share it with our neighbors, our community, and one thing that it's something you mentioned made me think of this. I'm interviewing people to hire for the fall because I need extra employees in the fall, and I'm getting, the people who are coming and go, oh, I want to work here because I had my birthday party here, and I want to work here because I've come here, for years, and it's my favorite place to come, and
so sweet.
I've got people getting to the point where people who've worked for me as teenagers are coming back with their children.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Visiting with their children, and I'm probably about ready to start hiring the children of my employees. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but
won't take
that'll be coming next.
I know. Oh my gosh.
So it is a family.
Yes, it is.
It's a family business. We feel like all the people who come to visit us are family, and we just love being part of this community.
Absolutely. Well, and final plug too, I was going to say, if people, you have a lot of your history kind of posted and shared in the not the barn area, but
what we call the education building.
The education building, which is kind of like next to that first sort of playground, the little like mice. And
right.
It's the white education building where you can kind of see more of like the family tree was in there, some of the posters and some of the history pieces. So, well, thank you so much, Martha.
This has been so much fun.
Oh my gosh! And like I said, in our recap, I will also be sure to link and get some more of the pictures that we'll share, more of the family tree and more of the family history, because something that I obviously love to nerd out about. Again, I'm from Olney, which I like to think is just down the street, not too far. Yeah. My husband's from Columbia, so I mean, I've lived here now 6 years. So as someone that is a little bit of a transplant, though, it's just kind of like a hop up the road, you know, I have enjoyed getting to know places like this, and when I get to know more of that rich history, it just kind of really excites me, and it's something that I feel so passionate that when I get to kind of share that more with the families that I know and love. So thank you for continuing to share that, so we can kind of keep sharing and celebrating your legacy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talk Maryland. If you loved it, leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me at the.columbiamom on Instagram. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep supporting local, and keep being the incredible mom, woman, human that you are.